right, so this was my stock of the day article yesterday. Now, we have all these different momentum indicators, and one of the things I see that newer traders do is they put way too many things on their chart, and it gets way too complicated. If you look at these indicators, I don't know how many are in here, 100, 150. 90% of these are just different ways of measuring the same thing. Like you talked about moving average, convergence, divergence, right? So instead of having 10 things on your screen, which is just going to confuse you, my philosophy is just take 2 or 3, maybe 4, whatever, and just really get to know the nuances and really get to master them. Now, in talking about, and it's not that one is better than the other, different things appeal to different people. I basically use RSI and Bollinger Bands. I know plenty of successful people that use MACD or stochastics or whatever. But if we look at this RSI, I want to understand that these indicators all come with default settings. All right. Well, at least as far as I know, they'll come with default settings. Sometimes the default settings work really good, and sometimes you can find a setting that works better. Now, the RSI, if the blue line on the default setting gets below this lower red line here, which is 30, that's considered oversold. Why is that the default? Well, I don't know. My guess is the person who invented it, which I think is Wells Wilder, that was just the default setting he picked. Now look at Fubo. This thing has spiked a lot over the last 8 or 9 months or whatever, and the RSI never got down to 30. If we go into here and we change the default setting and we just kind of bump that up to 35, look what happens. We get the series of really good calls. So Fubo, well, every stock has its own personality. Fubo is oversold when the RSI gets to about 35. It doesn't need to get down to 30. So if you're trading a set list of stocks, I highly recommend that you spend a little bit of time optimizing this stuff. Because if you were trading this on the 35, look at how good your signals would have been. You would have gotten a signal there to buy, there. You just would have gotten one. Now, the other default setting is the time period. So this measures 14 time periods, where we are now versus where we were 14 time periods ago. Now, another nuance is this, right? Momentum is how much something has moved between time period A and time period B. In theory, say between time period A and time period B, the stock really blasted off or it got crushed. And then it ended up reversing and getting right back to the same price at time period B that it was at time period A. In other words, we're the same price now that we were at 14 days ago, but in the last 2 weeks, this thing went down 80% and now it's really overbought. Well, the RSI indicator is just taking where we are now versus where we are then. So it could show up as a neutral reading on the indicator. And you might say, well, this looks kind of neutral, but if you understand the nuances, you can understand why it shows that it's neutral, even though it might be really overbought or really oversold. So that's kind of the lesson I wanted to teach yesterday, was to understand that no indicator is infallible, of course, because if it was, everyone would use it. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that the way that they're constructed. So if you can tweak these things a little bit, you might end up getting better results, especially if you're someone who's really only trades like a set list of things, like say you just trade Bitcoin or you just trade NVIDIA. It would really probably be a good idea to spend an hour or two just kind of screwing around with some of the stuff here and to see if you could come up with something that gives better signals. And I think this Fubo is an excellent example of it.